Ever since the birth of civilization, when man segregated himself into different communities, there has always been a struggle between them for dominance. And more often than not, these struggles are decided by physical might, which led to the formation of armies. So let's take a look at some of the strongest armies in the world today. Number 20. Canada. Although Canada has usually been far from the disputes between different countries, they do have a pretty strong army. Canada spends about $15.7 billion on its army, and that's not bad considering that the armed forces of Canada are mostly used in UN missions, although they are also a part of the NATO military alliance, so their army is called upon more often than expected. Canada's armed forces number 92,000, and they have a total of 181 tanks with 420 aircrafts. Not bad for a country that does not take part in active wars. Number 19. Indonesia. Being a small country in terms of size does not mean that their military is small. They have around 476,000 personnel in their armed forces, and they also have about 468 tanks to support their troops. Indonesia spends around $6.9 billion on its defenses, and it's kind of surprising considering that they are pretty isolated from the world. Number 18. Germany. Germany has technically been one of the strongest military powers in the world since the dominance of Europe, but post-World War II, they've kind of reduced their army. That does not mean that it is weak in any sense, as they have around 179,046 army personnel, which is supported by their technical supremacy with 408 tanks, 663 aircrafts, and 4 submarines. And these are now being used to support Eastern European members of NATO, which is probably the reason that their military expense is at $40.2 billion. Number 17. Poland. Since the seizure of Crimea by the Russians and the ongoing Ukraine crisis, Poland has stepped up its military and now spends $9.4 billion towards its defense. They have a large number of personnel, 120,000 strong, who are supported by the 1,008 tanks that Poland possesses. Add that to the 467 aircrafts and 5 submarines, and you have a pretty strong army on your hands. Number 16. Thailand. Considering that it's located in a hostile environment, Thailand's military is pretty powerful, considering the fact that they actually do not spend that much money on their military, with their budget of $5.39 billion. And the Thai army was recently taken over by the country's government following a coup. That means the 306,000 strong army plays a big role in maintaining Thai unity. They also have 772 tanks and 573 aircrafts, along with an aircraft carrier, although they do not own any submarines as of now. Number 15. Australia. Another country which has been far from the squabbles of the world, Australia still maintains a strong army of 58,000 and spends about $26.1 billion on it. But their relatively smaller army is well supported by 408 aircrafts, 6 submarines, and a good number of helicopters. They could do with more tanks though, as the current number they have is just 59. Number 14. Israel. Even though its military is small compared to some of the other countries, the Israeli army is still considered one of the best in the world. They spend around $17 billion to maintain their 160,000 strong troops, and they have a large tank backup with 4,170 tanks in service. Israel also has about 684 aircrafts and 5 submarines, and that's actually one of the reasons behind their independence in an otherwise hostile neighborhood. Number 13. Taiwan. Considering that it is almost always under threat of Chinese occupation, Taiwan maintains a strong military with one of the largest helicopter fleets in the world. They also have a healthy budget to support their army at $10.7 billion. The Taiwanese army has around 290,000 personnel, along with 2,005 tanks, 804 aircrafts, and 4 submarines. The large fleet of aircrafts and tanks is probably one of the reasons behind Taiwan having its own existence today. Number 12. Egypt. One of the oldest and largest military in the Middle East, Egypt has one of the largest tank fleets in the world with 4,624 tanks. They also maintain a large number of armed forces, 468,500 to be exact. And that's not the end of it, as their aircraft fleet is also pretty large, with 1,107 aircrafts. Considering that they receive USA to maintain their army, it does look like they're spending that money well, considering that their budget for their army is just $4.4 billion. Number 11. Pakistan. Ever since its creation, Pakistan has been known to have a strong military. That is not surprising, since many consider that it is the army which actually runs the country. Pakistan spends about $7 billion to maintain its strong army of 617,000 troops, 2,924 tanks, 914 aircrafts, and 8 submarines. Not to mention that they are also spending a large amount on developing their nuclear arsenal, and it's estimated that they will have the 3rd largest nuclear arsenal by the end of the decade. Number 10. Turkey. Another country which maintains a seriously large army is Turkey, and they have one of the largest armies in the Eastern Mediterranean, with an estimated budget of $18.2 billion. Their army comprises of 410,500 troops, 3,778 tanks, 1,020 aircrafts, and 13 submarines. And that is besides the fact that they are also part of the F-35 program. Number 9. United Kingdom. Traditionally one of the strongest nations in the world, UK has had one of the most dominant armies in history. And even though their significance has decreased in world politics over the years, UK still has a well-kept army which costs them around $60.5 billion. Their troops number at 146,980, with 407 tanks, 936 aircrafts, and 10 submarines. They also have a large aircraft carrier coming into service soon, which can carry about 40 F-35s to any part of the world. Number 8. Italy. When you think of mobs, Italy is the first name to come up, and to keep that in check, they need to have a strong army, which is why Italy spends around $34 billion towards its defenses, which are made up of 320,000 troops, 586 tanks, 760 aircrafts, and 6 submarines. Not to mention that they also have 2 active aircraft carriers and a huge helicopter fleet. So any country thinking of messing with Italy should really think twice. Number 7. South Korea. With a very hostile neighbor in North Korea, South Korea has no option but to have a strong army. South Korea spends around $62.3 billion to keep their army well funded, and considering that they have 624,465 active frontline troops, 2,381 tanks, 1,412 aircrafts, and 13 submarines, that large budget is actually needed. Number 6. France. Another country which was a major player in world politics, France has always had a strong army. And considering the fact that they are routinely deployed throughout Africa to help stabilize governments, it is not surprising that they spend $62.3 billion on their army. They have around 202,761 troops, 423 tanks, 1,264 aircrafts, and 10 submarines in the service of their army currently, and have also inducted the aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle into active service. Number 5. India. Another country which is surrounded by aggressive neighbors, India has no option but to maintain a large army. So much so that they have the 3rd largest number of active frontline personnel in the world. India has 1,325,000 active troops, and that number is matched by 6,464 tanks, 1,905 aircrafts, and 15 submarines. And they are also developing nuclear capabilities, and it is expected that they will become the 4th highest military spender in the world by 2020. And some of that budget also goes in developing aircraft carriers, as they are developing their 3rd, which makes them the country with the 2nd highest number of carriers, behind USA. Number 4. Japan. Although technically they're a very small country and that they were ravaged during the Second World War, Japan still has one of the strongest armies in the world. They spend around $41.6 billion on military expenditure and have 247,173 troops in service. Japan also has 678 tanks, 1,613 aircrafts, and one of the largest helicopter fleets in the world. Considering that they are essentially an island country, it is not surprising that Japan has a large submarine fleet of 16. Number 3. China. One of the strongest countries in world politics today, China has a huge budget of $216 billion on their army, which is not surprising considering that they have 2,333,000 active personnel, 9,150 tanks, 2,860 aircrafts, and 67 submarines. And that's not where it ends. The Chinese are also making rapid advances in military technology, including ballistic missiles and 5th-generation aircrafts to boost their military supremacy. Number 2. Russia. Soviet Union was the most powerful country in the world at one time, with only the US to match its strength. And even though their strength reduced considerably after the Cold War, Russia still has one of the best armies in the world. They spend $84.5 billion on their army and have the largest tank fleet in the world, the 2nd largest aircraft fleet, and the 3rd largest submarine fleet. Their army is made up of 766,055 troops, 15,398 tanks, 3,429 aircrafts, and 55 submarines. And the Russians are also expected to increase their military budget by 44% in the coming years, and that would only make their army stronger. And finally, number 1, USA. Hands down, USA has the strongest army in the world today. And that is not surprising, considering that their military budget of $601 billion is more than the previous 9 countries on this list combined. Their army consists of 1,400,000 troops, 13,892 tanks, and 72 submarines. And not to mention they have around 10 aircraft carriers in their fleet, which is significantly more than any other on the planet. And to boost their strength further, they have the largest nuclear arsenal in the world today, and they also spend a lot in developing new technologies, like the Navy's new railgun, which gives them much supremacy in battles. Not to mention that the US also contributes a lot towards the military expenses of other countries, which makes them pretty much the strongest country in the world today, and it's not really likely that their dominance is going to reduce in the coming years, considering that they spend an insane amount on their military. Have you ever served in the army? Do let us know what these kind of budgets and equipment mean to the troops in the comment section below. And remember to subscribe to our channel to get instant updates on our latest videos.